As we all know, our young generation holds the future of our society in their hands, which is a scary thought to me, but you know. It's our responsibility to provide them with the guidance and resources needed to succeed in the legal field. So without wasting another second, let's welcome our moderator, Ms. Lisa Anna Palmer, who is the founder and CEO of Light Your Leadership, Inc., along with our esteemed panelists, Dr. Joseph J. Lestrage, PhD and Senior Consultant of HSI Division. He's the chief, retired, and at Cardinal Point Strategies. Also, Mr. Philip Grant, Chief Legal Counsel at NYS Supreme Court, and Rhett T. Francisco, Esquire, who's the lead trial attorney and litigator at Workplace Investigation Specialty, an employee justice legal group. They will speak on the subject, Nurturing the Leaders of Tomorrow in the Corridors of Law. And panelists, if you could please leave your cell phones away from the mic so we don't get any interference. Under the chair might be great. Thank you.
Hello?
Thank you. So I have to have my phone available to me. My wife is 38 weeks pregnant. Hey, baby, how are you? Julianne, I love you very much. So if I run off this stage, it's because my son's being born. So.
Well, welcome, everyone. It's such an honor to be here today on this important topic. Imagine that we could have workplaces that nurture people in the legal field so that they can give their very best. They do such important work in our society. They fight for our rights, make sure everything's looked after so that we can have our freedoms. And they struggle a lot. It's a tough, tough profession. So I work in leadership development and HR and for over 30 years now. And I've had opportunities to have many, many clients who worked in the legal profession. And it's an honor for me to be here today to moderate this panel with these fine gentlemen. And the presenter kind of went over the bios a little bit, but I think I'll go a little bit in more detail because just so that you know the incredible people who are up here on the stage. And we're here to be of service, really, to get the word out on what it takes to nurture the leaders of tomorrow in the corridors of law. And what we're going to be talking about today really can apply to any profession. Okay, so keep that in mind. So I'm just going to put on my readers here because I need them now. So first up, we have Rhett Francisco. Attorney Rhett Francisco is an expert who focuses on employment practices and business operations. So important today. There are so many people suffering in workplaces that we need people to represent us. Mr. Francisco is a triple certified by the Society for Human Resources Management as a, get this, certified professional and senior certified professional, as well as a certified workplace investigation specialist. The American Institute of Legal Counsel has recognized Mr. Francisco as one of California's 10 best employment and labor law attorneys, and Thomson Reuters has honored Mr. Francisco in its Super Lawyers publications each year from 2012 through 2023. Help me welcome Mr. Francisco. Next up, we have Phil Grant, right here. Hi, Phil. Phil is a principal law clerk and chief legal counsel to the New York State Supreme Court, Kings County Commercial Division, which was created to handle the country's largest and most complex cases. Over a career spanning 35 years, that can't be, you started real young. Yeah, okay. Phil has worked, we're 5? Okay, that's good. I started at 10, so that's pretty good. Okay, Phil has worked in the public and private sectors, initially as a White House intern during his 3rd year in law school at Georgetown University, and then as an associate of Premier Global Law Firm. He then moved to Wall Street, and in his 3rd year out of law school, devised the winning appellate strategy for a landmark insurance case. Phil is a former New York State Assistant Attorney General, where he served as lead counsel for 2 of the largest cases prosecuted through one of the Attorney General's regional offices. The National Black Bar Association named Phil as one of their top 100 in 2017 and in 2018. The American Law Society named him as one of their America's top lawyers. Wow. Everyone, round of applause. And then right there, second to last here, second to last but not least, Dr. Joseph Lestrage. Dr. Lestrage is a senior advisor for Cardinal Point Strategies with over 3 decades of experience, a global consulting firm working to assist technology clients in the development of responsible artificial intelligence. So responsible artificial intelligence and machine learning products for law enforcement. He retired in 2022 as the Department of Homeland Security's National Headquarters Division Chief of Public Safety and National Security for Homeland Security Investigations after 32 years of service. These days, Dr. Lestrage is also an adjunct professor at Tiffin University's PhD in Global Leadership and Change Management. Wow. Okay, so everybody, round of applause. I am Lisa Anna Palmer. I'm the CEO of Light Your Leadership, Inc. I'm the author of best-selling book, Light a Fire in the Hearts, The Truth About Leadership. I created a podcast. It's called Lil Talks, LYL Talks, for Light Your Leadership Talks. And I'm writing my second book, Leadership in a Post-Pandemic World. And I'm so excited that we have this opportunity to now look at workplaces post-pandemic and find the opportunities to make them more humane. So there's wellness as a priority, not as an afterthought. And also to look at ways to nurture the next generation of leaders. Leaders who focus on the humanity of the people who work with them, and who have compassion, who have courage and competence to create a better world for all of us and for tomorrow. So let's begin our questions. So first up, Rhett. Rhett, can you start us off with, what's your definition of leadership? And just take it from there. What's your definition of leadership?
So I appreciate that, Lisa. I'm going to stand up. Motion creates emotion, ladies and gentlemen. This conference should largely be about energy, the energy that we are communicating, the energy that we feel, and the energy that we share. Energy is infectious. Energize yourself, energize others. So I'm going to get up and talk and stand up. I apologize for walking in front of Lisa, Phil, and Joe, who are my distinguished panelists, and I'm honored to be with them. But I expect and hope that you will do the same. So I'm not really here to talk about myself. If you want to know about me, Google me, look me up. You can read my LinkedIn profile if you want. What I am here to do is I am here to provide you with actionable knowledge and information. I'm not here just to talk to you. I'm here to make your life, your profession better today, starting now. That's what we should be doing here at this conference. That should be our goal. That should be your goal. Just like Sean Callaghy said yesterday, you're here because you want more. By the way, welcome to everyone in the audience. And I would be remiss if I did not welcome everyone who is in the virtual audience, those thousands of people out there, whether you are live or on an on-demand program later on. Welcome. Please listen. Please join us. Thank you very much. Also, please give it up for the conference organizers. Please give it up for them. I want to leave you here feeling invigorated, renewed, revitalized, with the ability and the desire to take action, meaningful action. So I'm not going to talk about the leaders of tomorrow as the youth, because the leaders of today are the leaders of tomorrow, and they will guide and mentor the leaders of tomorrow, that youth. So I'm going to talk about leadership generally. What is leadership? So typically we think of leadership as like managers. That's not what leadership is. Leadership is different from management, ladies and gentlemen. Management, what do managers do? They get shit done. Pardon my blue language, I'm a blue-collar guy in a white-collar job. I also do it intentionally. I want you to understand that. I'm here to wake you up. I'm here to shock your system. I will use blue language if I feel it's appropriate in the context. It's adult language. It's language that should communicate to us. You should feel something when you hear from me. You should leave this conference saying, he woke me up. I don't care how it happens, but this is your opportunity to wake up, to be that leader that lies within you. Because you all have it in you. That's why you are here. That's why you are listening. whether you're at home or otherwise. So, a manager's role is different from a leader. A leader's role is primarily as a visionary and an inspiration point, right? Vision and inspiration. And so, more simply, we're looking at what I like to call a chief inspiration officer. So we hear about C-suite, CEOs, COOs, CFOs. Be the CIO. Be your chief inspiration officer. Inspire yourself, inspire those around you, whether it's your family, your friends, your colleagues, your coworkers, or otherwise. Be the inspiration that you want others to be around you. So how do we do that? How do we become the CIO of our lives? Well, it's this broad thing that is kind of the buzzword today in the industry. It's emotional intelligence. You heard Lisa talk a little bit about wellness. That's part of it. Well, it's really about awareness of others, coworkers, friends, family. It's about thoughts, awareness of their thoughts, their feelings, and their beliefs, and having them be heard. So you heard Sean Callaghy say this. Yesterday in his keynote speech, if you were listening, you can replay it back if you're listening remotely. But what he talked about, and Paul Crisciolo, who's of the same firm, Callaghy Law, he mentioned this on at least one or two of the panels that he was on. They obviously think that Oprah's statement about listening to people is a big deal because they repeated what Oprah said, and they said the reason she was so successful and the reason she held that mic for so long is because she said, I hear you, I see you, and what you have to say is important. But what they left off, what Callaghy and Crisciolo left off, was the last part of what she said. And what she said is, because you matter. You matter. You matter. You matter. You all matter. Convince yourself, believe it, you matter, your family matters, those around you matter. And it's not just you, get out of yourself, and that's what emotional intelligence is. Every day, life hits us fast. We all have bills to pay, we all have families to feed, we all have, things that we have to do. But we also have others around us, family, friends, coworkers, colleagues. You cannot forget them. So I'm going to give you 3 action items here, okay? I told you I want actionable items to give you. Action item number 1, active listening. Be an active listener. How many of you, when you are hearing a conversation, how many of you right now are thinking to yourself, well, this is what I would have said. Well, this is what I should say. This is what I want to hear. How many of you are doing that and working within your mind instead of really being present and listening to what someone is telling you in the moment? Be an active listener. Repeat it back. I'm a trial attorney. I do this at the beginning of every jury selection because communication is important and it's the fundamental to communication. What this is active listening is repeating back what you heard because people have difficulty communicating. Sometimes what people say is not what they mean. Sometimes what you hear is not what they meant to say. And so active listening is, this is what I heard, and Lisa is so good at this. In preparation for this, she displayed mastery of this, and I think you'll hear her do some of this today, but it's a matter of, what I heard you say is blank. Am I right about that? Did I get that right? And if you didn't, tell me. And be honest, be open. And be willing to accept change. Be willing to accept that you didn't hear it right or that they didn't communicate to you what they really meant. So action item number 1, active listening. We do active listening because if we don't, it can lead to arguments, misunderstandings. Action item number 2, argue to learn. Stop arguing to win. How many of us in here only argue to win? I'm an attorney. I argue to win for a living. That's the wrong system and setup outside the courtroom. Argue to learn. Argue to be a better person, to gain knowledge. So action item number 1, active listening. Be a fierce listener. Action item number 2, be a voracious learner. So learn. Argue to learn. Action item number 3. And this is, I think, where we'll get some spin off. It's check in with yourself. And I say this last because this is the foundation for action items 1 and 2. If you do not check in with yourself, if you are not taking care of yourself, if you are not asking yourself, what's my energy? How do I feel? If you're not asking yourself questions like, how am I feeling in this moment? Am I pissed? Am I angry? Am I frustrated? Am I tense? Because that will come out. People are smart. They see micro ticks. We learn these things from the time we're born. We learn how to read body language, facial expressions, tone, cadence, use of words. How is your energy when you are talking to somebody? And fundamentally, you need to ask yourself, am I in a position as I sit here in this moment to be inspiring, to be here, to be present, to convey energy, to give off energy, to allow those to feed off of me so that they can then take that energy and further communicate that energy down the road and be better themselves? Because energy is infectious. We are an open loop system as human beings. And you're going to want to have resonance and vibration, okay? Resonance, think about that. I'm going to close this with what Maya Angelou said. I'm going to paraphrase what she said. People will not remember exactly what you say. You will not remember exactly what I said here today. 6 months from now, a year from now, you will not remember these words. But they will remember exactly how you made them feel. You will remember exactly how you feel right now, 6 months, or a year from now. And that is what you should take away from this. How are you making people feel? Are you making people's lives better? Are you conveying energy that makes your life and their life better, collectively, individually? Or are you a drain? And so Liz Weissman, the book Multipliers, check it out. She talks about this. Are you a multiplier or are you a diminisher? Because everyone around you has what Liz Weissman calls genius. I think she overuses the term. But it really means skills, traits, characteristics, abilities, talents. Everyone around you has talents, different from you. Are you allowing them to unleash those talents? Because, look, keep actions item 1, 2, and 3 in mind. Action item 1, active listening. Action item 2, learning, arguing to learn. And action item number 3, self-check, checking in with yourself. Keep those in mind, okay? Write them down. Put them somewhere where you can't ignore them every day. If you do, that's when you will unleash the potential in you, unleash that chief inspiration officer in you, and in so doing, you will unleash the potential and the inspiration of those around you. Thank you.
Wow, round of applause. Rhett, that was amazing. I think basically you gave a keynote, and I vote you for keynotes in the future. I think that, you know, all the things you said about listening, about, you know, you matter, all those messages are so important. And really, leadership is about unleashing forces for good in yourself and in others. And I think that's what you gave us today. You gave us that recipe. So thank you very much, Rhett, for that.
So that's exactly what I said. I told you she'd be good at this, right? That's active listening.
And you know what? Richard Branson would agree with you. I was at a conference. I asked him a question. I said, you know, what's your top leadership skill? And he said, listen, listen, listen. So there you go. Awesome. Thank you so much. Now, you can sit or stand or whatever. Use the podium, whatever you like. So Joe, you know, in your vast experience consulting with organizations, looking at formal leadership, so that means having a leadership position where you have the title to go with it, you know, you can go from management all the way up to CEO, the top. You know, what advice do you have for organizations in terms of nurturing leadership?
Sure, I guess I'll stand for this. So how many of you in the audience have had folks come in and new organization, they come in, they have a new value proposition of what they're going to do for you, right? And do they pad their own careers and stuff for it? And that causes a lot of mistrust, right? And a lot of legitimacy problems in the organization, right? So as a leader, you're there to work for the folks that report to you, not the other way around. I always start with that value, right? Because if you start with that value and you understand in the pecking order, you might have more decision-making authority because you have a higher title or you're in a higher position in the organization. But at the end of the day, you're there to serve the needs of the folks under you so that they can get the job done, right? And what Rhett was talking about earlier with the vision, right? You know, your leader sets the vision, also sets the cultural environment, right? And that environment, people understand, right? The minute they come for an interview, right? You're setting a tone, You're creating a feeling, all right, a feeling of, do I want to work in this organization? Because remember, when you're bringing new people into your organization, they should technically be interviewing you as well, right? Is this a place I want to work? And some of my students in the PhD program that I teach, they're doing a lot of research right now, Generation Z, right? These are the young folks coming into the workforce today. Very different than what many of us in this room are used to, right? They've come in, their trust in the government, their trust in organizations and institutions to begin with is very, very low. They want to do good. They want to have a meaningful purpose in the job that they do, right? They've been, from the day they were born until now entering the workforce, the country that we live in has been at war, right, until just recently, right? And now we're involved in a proxy war, right? So their trust, right? So to start out, you have to get to these folks young by setting the tone of what does your organization stand for? What is the why of what your organization exists for, right? What's the why? And then it's about finding a culture fit, finding individuals that share that why with you, right? One of the most engaging presentations I ever was at was about a year ago, and a gentleman from a police department in it was a recruitment and retention summit that we were at in Las Vegas, actually, here a year ago. And a gentleman gave a presentation. He was the chief of police up in New Jersey. And the reason he started out his presentation about recruitment and retention, talking about why. Why did he become a police officer, right? So he had a story that he shared with everybody to start his presentation. And basically, when he was a young child, he was just hanging out on the front steps of his place in a pretty rough neighborhood he grew up in. And his friends were coming down the street, and a couple of cops just randomly jumped out on them, threw them up against the squad car, searched them. They had nothing on them. They were just coming back from playing basketball, threw the basketball in the middle of the street. Obviously, these kids were shooken up. He was shooken up by it, and he ran inside to his father. And his father was inside, and he's like, doing this to my friends, and this is what happened, this, that, and the other thing. And his father said to him, well, don't complain about it. Become part of the solution. And the kid actually grew up to be a police officer. He became a chief. He had great impact through the community he worked in for many years doing youth engagement. That was his why. That's why he did what he did, why he came to work. So when you're talking about starting the foundation of what you stand for in an organization, you want to set that tone and make sure that you connect with the folks what your why is, why the company exists, right? Why the organization exists. If you're working for the government like I did for 32 years, there's a mission, right? And that mission is to serve the people of the United States or the community that you work, right? If you're in a local government organization. So what is that mission? Why is that important to you, and why do you want to be a part of it? So if you do those things, then you set the foundation to have people believe in the work. And then the second part of it is you have to treat people good, right? I actually, ironically, just a few days ago, put what I thought was just one of my usual posts on my LinkedIn forum, and it just went viral. And it's the first time this ever happened to me. And basically it was, people like to pat themselves on the back about what great programs they've put together in their organizations for wellness. And then they allow toxic leadership practices in their organizations to thrive, right? Cronyism, right? Selecting people for promotions because you went to training with them, or, you go out drinking with them when you're younger, hopefully. I don't do that anymore. But, and things like that, or a family member. You have people that are coming into work every day grinding, never get a chance. They're not seen, they're not heard, right? It creates a very toxic environment, and I could go on, for hours about that.
And we're going to talk about the wellness piece in a moment. I do want to open this up to the panel and also to yourself. Sure. First of all, thank you so much for bringing up, start with why, Simon Sinek, right? It's so important to bring people back to that purpose, because that purpose will take you through anything, and that's what inspires and engages people. When we do surveys on, what engages people the most, pay comes out like 4th or 5th. It really is about finding meaning in work. And this is one of the things that has evolved in the workplace. It's not just about a paycheck. People are looking for meaning rather than money. So the story that you shared about the gentleman who went through difficult times and then went up through the ranks to be able to give back in that way, that's really meaningful. And that's a great way to nurture leadership, is to get people to connect with their why. So on that note, before we get to a question for Phil here, is do you agree with the statement that promoting people before they are ready, i.e. haven't developed their leadership, that promoting people into leadership roles before they're ready is harmful to them, their team, their organization? Would you like to take that? Just follow. Go ahead, Phil.
I'll take that. I'll sit for this one. I mean, listen, the obvious answer is yes, right? But we all realize that in the real world, right, that happens all the time. And it really does undermine what we were talking about earlier about the mission. When you have people that are quickly jumping up in rank or in a higher position in organizations and then supervising people that have more knowledge than them, it causes resentment. And that breaks down trust, it breaks down legitimacy of your authority, right? I mean, a title gives you, formal authority, but what you're really trying to strive for is reverent authority, right? Where people respect you, they love how you treat them, they connect with you emotionally, and they want to come to work and leave it all on the field, as they would say in a sports reference. So absolutely, I think it's a bad move.
Yeah, and go ahead.
I'm going to say, let's see if we can get this strong one. Yeah, can I try
One
another
second.
one?
Let me see if there's another one.
Want to try mine?
Well,
Don't want to have feedback.
okay. You can pass it back and forth. So I'm an attorney also. I'm just curious, before I respond to that, how many people here are attorneys and how many people are in other industries? And of course, I know we have a virtual audience also, but it's mostly people in non-attorneys. So, and I want to talk to both, but I'm going to say not necessarily. Do I agree with that? A lot of time, now there is, cronyism is bad, anyone will say that, but sometimes how we advance the legal profession in particular, maybe other professions, there's working hard, and then there's luck. And I think of the artists and how successful you are often has very little to do with how good you are. It's being in the right place at the right time, and all you can do is focus on being the best you can be. And we talked about finding something you love, as opposed to doing things just for money. That doesn't lead to satisfaction. Most people will say that doesn't lead to satisfaction. Doing something that you love, that leads to success, does. But doing something that you love that doesn't necessarily lead to success is still often preferable to doing something that you hate and just making a lot of money doing it. So all you can do is do the best you can do so that if the opportunity presents itself, you're ready. I'll share one anecdote. I have many anecdotes over the last 35
years of experience, yes.
And I don't want to get too far ahead, but this was a fellow from Ireland who I met. I was in my 20s and he was in his 50s, working at a summer camp. He started out as a professional boxer, and then he went on to, when he was too old to box, he became a bouncer at a bar, and then he wound up owning the bar, and then he wound up owning a racehorse, and then he became a professional golfer, I think in his 40s. And when we met, he was in his 50s, and he had just learned he was just learning to play tennis, and within 2 months, he was beating the tennis coach. Oh, wow. But he said something that I have several of the best advice that I ever heard over my 35 years, but he said something that was very interesting. It's not, he said, there's nothing, no science behind this. It's just something I believe, which is that everyone is allotted the same amount of luck in their lifetime, whether you believe that or not. And the problem is that most people just don't recognize windows of opportunity when they're right in front of them. So that's a slightly different thing than active listening, which I wanted to talk about also, but I don't want to take too long. But I'm going to attribute the active listening to someone even earlier than Oprah, a young fellow by the name of Socrates, may have been the first person to talk about active listening. And in order to, you can't teach, that's the Socratic method, basically. You can't teach until you reach a point of agreement. So what do most people do when they're arguing? They think about what they're saying. They don't think about what the other person is saying. And the Socratic method is that you can't move forward until you've reached a point of agreement. So what you'd say is, you'd say your point, and if you don't agree, you'd say, well, what do you say? And active listening, repeating back what the other person says. If the person says, no, that's not what I said, most people just keep going. No, you don't keep going. You say, okay, well, if I got it wrong, repeat, is this what you said? And you have to keep doing that until you reach a point that you agree, and then you can move to the next step, and that's the Socratic method, active listening. But coming back to my, and then I'll pass the mic, but the advice was that most people don't see windows of opportunity when they're right in front of them, so it's active, keeping your eyes open as well.
Yeah, no, that's such a great point. It is opportunity and also preparing. And I think that's where we can prepare so that not only do we notice opportunities, but are ready when they come. And it doesn't mean knowing the whole recipe and exactly what you're going to do. It's just, I believe it's mindset. It's having a mind that's, leaning towards growth and being open. And one of the biggest things is getting the heck out of your comfort zone when those opportunities come. Because I think we often maybe notice them and we see them and they're kind of looking at us. And then we go, oh my God, there's an opportunity. And I'm not ready for it. I'm afraid of it. I'm going to run the other way. I'm going to go hide until we build up the courage. So seizing opportunities is leadership. It means that we are making the decision to pursue it despite our fears, despite feeling vulnerable, despite, name the fear that's keeping you away from that opportunity. So notice the opportunity, as Phil mentioned, because sometimes we're like so focused on what's going on in front of us, we don't lift up our head to look around. And secondly is seize that opportunity, run towards it. If you're afraid, that's good. Get over yourself. Do what you need to do to get there. So thank you for that, Phil, for bringing that up.
Not being afraid to take a job that you may think you're not qualified for.
Exactly.
Not being afraid.
Imposter
Sometimes
syndrome,
you have to
right?
fake it until you make it.
Fake it. And so tell us a little bit more, Phil, because you have such an illustrious career and you worked in private sector, public sector, et cetera. So tell us a little bit more about that journey and seizing that opportunity, even when you maybe didn't feel like you were ready for it.
Okay, well, I came out of law school in the 1980s, which was a vastly different time than now. Since the 1980s was a period of extreme growth in the legal profession and in mergers and acquisitions. We had two major shifts in that since then. So there was Black Friday, 1989, when the largest crash of the stock market since the Depression. And then in 2009, we had, again, the revamping of the entire legal industry and the business world. Everything shifted in 2009. That could be a 2-hour talk right there.
Another time.
another time.
We'll put a pin in that one.
Put a pin in that one, but we'll just say that when I came out of law school, I wound up getting my first job. Well, first of all, when I came out of law school in the 1980s, no one didn't get a job. You may not have gotten to the
yeah, but
the
you got one at the
job.
White House. I mean,
well,
come on,
well, I got one right out of law school, working for. So during my 3 years in law school, the salaries doubled in 3 years, and the industry was just growing. And then my third year, one law firm said, "We're tired of competing with everyone else. We're going to pay twice what they're paying." And another firm joined them, and I got a job with that highest paying law firm in the country. But the point that I want to make is that, so I did very well in law school. I was an editor of Georgetown's Tax Law Journal. It was the second largest tax journal in the world. And it was I did pretty well. But I don't think any of that would have been enough for that job at the highest paying law firm in the country without the White House background. And that's the point that I want to get to. Sometimes the path to growth is not linear. And particularly in the legal field, a lot of law firms will only hire young attorneys who have some prime government background, whether it's a judicial clerkship. A lot of law firms will say they only hire people who have judicial clerkship backgrounds. But beyond that, people who work in the securities field, working for the SEC, working for the U.S. Attorney, people in the tech field, working for the CIA, or anything like that. It's often a better way to get better training, and they know that. So that's the point, that often the path to success is not linear. You have to take chances.
100%.
Particularly when you're young.
Yeah.
And you don't have a mortgage.
Yeah.
When you have a mortgage
That
and you have
mortgage
3 kids, you
gets in
can't
the way
take chances.
sometimes.
Taking chances and doing things out of your comfort zone.
Yeah,
is a
no,
good thing.
that's really great, super advice, and that's for any profession. I've coached people, thousands of people, and it's interesting. I maybe can name 20 who said, oh, I wanted to be a doctor or a lawyer at 8, and then they became it. Most people end up going on this career path. That is a journey, and sometimes it's lateral, sometimes it's from industry to the other, and whatnot, because really what employers are looking for is well-rounded people that have a broad perspective, and they can bring all that to the table when you hire them. So that is really great advice on how to nurture leadership and also your personal and professional brand. So we have about 5 minutes left, and I'd be remiss if I didn't bring up the topic that was already brought up about wellness, okay, and health and wellness, not just in the court of law, but also, or in the corridors of law, but also in other professions. So we're at a finance conference here as well. So get this. Low engagement costs the world economy $7.8 trillion every year, and that's according to Gallup, so they know what they're talking about. 7.3 or $7.8 trillion every year due to low engagement levels. So what does that mean? It means that when your employees are not engaged at work, you're not nurturing leadership, because that's usually why they're not engaged, is because there's not leadership showing up at every single level, starting with self-leadership of individuals. You want to nurture that, but also people who you put in management roles need to know how to connect at the human level. I think Rhett, and also Phil and Joe also touched on this. We can't ignore it. It's often put to the side. So I'm going to share just a little story, and it's a very profound one, about one of my clients who had been a superb lawyer. We worked in corporate. He was involved in $40 billion deals. And I saw him because I started my business in 2011, so he came to me a few years later, and he said, I need help for coaching. I'm looking for another job. He had burnt out, completely burnt out. And by the way, lawyers report, according to Bloomberg's law, that there's about 44 to 47% burnout rate, okay? And he had gone through a very difficult time. His son had a brain tumor. His own health suffered. He eventually got a brain tumor as well. And the organization turned their back on him after he had done such amazing work and was working day and night for them. And, he passed away at 42 years old. Last year. His name was Marc-André. So I'm honoring him here today. And he wanted me to share this message. You got to take care of your people. They're not consumable goods. So given all that, there are people suffering in professions, and these are our best and brightest, in law, in finance, in health, education, you name it, any industry. What can we do to nurture leaders who will pay attention to their people, put them first and realize profits doing it, right? Because that's the question we always get the pushback on, is what about the shareholder? Well, do the math. Your shareholder's happy when your client's happy, and your client's happy when your people are happy and well taken care of. So knowing we know that math, what are some pieces of advice that you have in your experience where we can create wellness, health, and put a priority on creating leaders who will pay attention to that? Rhett, would you like to go ahead?
Lots said. Really good panel. If you didn't catch this, go to YouTube and review this panel. The single best panel at this conference so far. Congratulations on my panelists, and thank you for allowing me to be here. With regard to nurturing leaders of tomorrow, lead by example, ladies and gentlemen. Lead by example, share good energy, go in. Before you pick up the phone, smile. It'll change your tone. Before you have a meeting, you know what Anthony Robbins does? Move around, make yourself big. Create energy. And fundamentally, when we're talking about leadership and the new age of leadership, where this is going is the past is command and control, ladies and gentlemen. The past, the industrial age of iron fist, leading with an iron fist and telling people what it is and how it's going to be, that's over. Gen Z has told you that is over. The next stage is trust and inspire. Trust, inspire, do good, share energy. Inspire those around you. Feel inspired yourself. Check your energy. 3 actionable items, ladies and gentlemen. Take it away with you. Active listening, arguing to learn, and self-check-in. That will make you tomorrow's Chief Inspiration Officer, and that will lead you to mentor the future Chief Inspiration Officers.
Yeah. Rhett for Chief Inspiration Officer. That's awesome. No, really great. Thank you for that. Get your energy
I'm a
up.
trial lawyer.
That's great. No, and you know what? Imagine being in an office and you're being like inspired in the way that lift the energy of your offices. You know, I go into different buildings or even on Zoom calls and I'm like, this is the place where fun forgot. You know? And it's like the first thing that I want to do is like get the heck out of there. So, and your employees are experiencing the same thing, or maybe you're an employee who's experienced that. But it's get that energy up, connect with purpose, you know, and just quickly before we wrap up, do you have any comments on that piece of wellness?
I think really it's just about knowing your people, right? And take the time to know your people. Some of the most effective leaders that I worked for were people that remembered, you know, when your dad was sick, or remember when your kid was sick and asked how they were the next morning. You know, it's the human factor. We keep saying it, and we keep thinking we have to teach it. Sometimes it's just that it's kind of like, you know, it's right in front of our faces, really.
I think we need to remember it.
You have to remember to make that part of your active leadership practice, right? And I always viewed leadership as a practice, kind of like martial arts. You get your black belt. You don't just put it in the trash after. That's the ticket that now you're going to start your studies, right? And you're going to make that part of your practice. And leadership's the same way. We always should be growing. We should be learning more. We should be self-reflecting to see, you know, maybe the way I think I'm leading is not how people are perceiving me, right? And having that self-reflection time. And then, you know, continuously to build on it and build on it. And when you make mistakes, you know, it's okay to admit you make a mistake, right? I mean, you're not expected to get everything right all of the time. It's not, you know, if you are creating an environment where people trust you and you trust them to do their job, right, you're empowering them. I don't even like to use the word empowering anymore. The newer words that are out there, you know, especially in adaptive leadership and some of the newer leadership studies now, are you're entrusting them to do their job.
Entrusting.
You've trained them, you've nurtured them, you've developed them. You've then created an environment for them to be successful. You then send them out to do their job. You ask them what they think needs to be done. And you know, you see the effective leaders in big organizations get this, because they realize as they go up higher and higher and higher in the organizations, it's impossible to be the technical expert at everything anymore, like you were when you may be a first line or even a second line supervisor, right? So if you don't learn to delegate and to see your role as sort of saying, hey, I want to go there. Now you guys help me, and you guys help me get there.
And,
right?
and that is really great advice. Unfortunately, we're out of time. because we probably could have gone on here forever. I just have one last thing. So connect at the human level through compassion, courage, competence. Do those things as a start, somewhere to go. Close us out.
Close us out. I just want to tell you quickly, this is probably the best advice that I've ever gotten in my 35 years. It was my first mentor.
Go ahead.
So he said this in the context of law, but I think it has a much broader application. I think it applies to all communication. He said it to me over 35 years ago. I repeated it back to him 20 years later. And he said, wow, I said that? And I said, yeah, I tweaked it over the years. But he said the first and second most important things to know in lawyering or in communication, period. First and second absolute most important things to know. The second most important thing to know is that most people are pretty honest. And the thing is that they default to honesty because lying takes work, and most people are too lazy to lie, so they're just honest. And if you're the type of person that questions every little thing, you waste a lot of time. Most people are honest, and if they're not honest, you usually know about it. That's the second most important thing to know. The absolute, which pales in comparison to the most important thing. The most important thing to know in communication is that nobody, absolutely nobody, ever says what they really mean. They don't say what they really mean a small percentage of the time because they're lying. The vast majority of the time, though, it's not that they're lying. They either don't know what they're talking about, or they know what they're talking about, but communication is not precise.
Thank you.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well,
He's about to jump on the stage. Thank you, everyone.
Okay.
Thank you, the organizers. This has been
Wow.
great.
Let's
Thank
give
you.
our panelists a rousing
Open with
applause.
that.
That was fantastic. I don't know about you guys, but I really, really enjoyed from that. The number one thing that I'm taking away from this is argue to learn. That's beautiful. That's golden right there. Thank you so much for sharing.